caught up in different things, and they violate rule number one. Always remember why you're there. Wherever you are, remember why you're there, right? Well, Sister Cheryl, I think is one of a small circle of people that I believe remembered at most times why she was at Syracuse. She knew she wasn't there to party. She wasn't there just to go to the games. She wasn't there. She was there to get the knowledge and the tools for her craft, to develop her craft that she would then use. And I think it's safe to say she's done her best to use her crafts beautifully for our community. Sister Cheryl, I can see that you're in the studio, but I can't see you. So if you're ready, just turn your camera on so that I can bring you in. Okay, so that's one of the things that I think is important that you know about our good Sister Cheryl. Hold on one second, family. So I do a little bit of housekeeping. And again, we want to thank you all for coming. All right. So I don't see. All right. So once again, there she go. I see. I'm gonna bring Sister Cheryl on. Look at Hollywood, sis. I see you. We're gonna bring Sister Cheryl on. We're gonna ask a little bit about updates about her, what she's doing in terms of her genealogy of her family. But most of the show, fam, she's gonna be breaking down her new book, and I'm excited to hear about it. So why don't we bring our good Sister Cheryl? How you doing, my sister?
Apologies. You know, my mother is 80 years old, and I had to run out because of a little scare.
Oh,
Family first, and then I ran back, and so I apologize for being late, but
hey, that sister, that's more important. Yeah, I understand. Things
it's
happen.
what it is.
Yeah,
I'm
it is.
not
How you
made
doing
up.
today?
I'm not made up, but I'm real. I was like, I got to get back. So it's most important thing is I'm here with my brother. How you doing?
I'm well. How are you doing?
It's good to see you. Part of the sunglasses.
Hey,
I'm
sis, you go ahead and get Hollywood on them,
a
sis.
little disheveled right now.
It's okay. You look fine, my sister. You look fine.
We've
And
been
certainly
friends
our
for
prayers
we've
and
been
meditations go to
yeah,
your
my mom.
mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was telling you she'll be 80 on August 12th.
Wow. Was she a Leo?
She is a Leo, a
Ah,
dominant
yeah.
Leo.
Yep. Yes,
So
yes, yes. Certainly
yeah.
our prayers go out to Sister Cheryl's mom. And the Queen Bee over here she says, work them sunglasses, superstar.
Brenda.
Now, Sister Cheryl, first of all, we thank you for your time. And we
Sure.
know that in your particular profession, time is serious,
Yeah.
right? So you
Yeah.
guys are always probably looking at the clock. Oh, I got to get this out in 30 seconds. So
Yeah.
we value your time. And we certainly are not going to hold anything an emergency against you. It happens to everybody and anybody. I
Yeah.
have a question for you, Sister Cheryl.
Yes, sir.
You knew, I don't know, at age 2 or whatever, that I'm going to be a journalist. That always amazed me when we were in school that you knew so young. Why do you think that has helped you as you've navigated through your career or your profession or not?
Yeah, absolutely. I always tell people you get inspirations. I don't care who you are. I'm no better than anybody else. You get inspiration, you get hints, you get feelings when you're a kid about who, what, where, when, why. Why am I here? What am I going to do? And I got that inspiration loud and clear when I was very young. And I'm just very happy that I stayed true to it through it all. You know what I mean? Through it all. Because there are so many pitfalls for young people of color that can steer you away from your dreams and your goals. And so when I was very young, I used to always just ask these questions of my family, like, I would see, in books and on TV, things about slavery. And I was like, well, obviously we're Black. Who's our ancestors who were enslaved? And no one ever had any questions for me. And that really bothered me. I mean, that really bothered me. And then when you and I hooked up almost, 40 years ago now at Syracuse University, that yearning to know my legacy continued. And it continued in the form of protests. It continued in the form of fighting for Black studies. It continued, it really permeated everything that I touched, even my journalism goals, because I wanted answers to how people of color are treated in this country. And doors just started opening for me, and the many questions I had started being answered. And it's really at a peak right now. Thank you for that lovely introduction. As I, come closer than ever to securing justice for my great 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 grandfather, Sandy Wills, who was an enslaved man who emancipated himself during the Civil War. We found his final resting place, and we are on the verge of exhuming him. And then once we make a positive identification, we are going to have him uh, reburied in Memphis National Cemetery, which is really where he should have been all along. So this has just been a sacred journey and confirmation of all of my questions when I was a kid and leading up to now. So thank you again for just being such a wonderful friend through it all. Your friendship means everything. Your leadership, your stewardship in the Black community. When I met you when you were just a pup, you were always
Mhm.
speaking truth to power. And, you continue to do so. So it's such an honor to be here with you on this broadcast with you and to share, my family's sacred journey. Because, I've accepted what turns out to be, Brother Aj, a sacred assignment.
Agreed, agreed. I mean, many of us I know in our generation remember the power and the gravity that the movie Roots, or really the series Roots, had on us, right?
Alex Haley, 1977, and I was 11 years old when that came out. And I remember thinking, that further inspired me, and, it's shocking when you're a kid and you see, like, as a kid, you're like, well, what did we do to make everybody treat us like this? Like, what did we as a race of people do? As a kid, you don't understand how you've been victimized. You don't understand it. You're just looking at the surface. And it really bothered me. It's like, why are we redlined? I grew up in public housing. Why are we redlined? How come Black people only live in this part of the community and anybody else can live where they want? And why are our schools not as nice as the other schools? So all of these questions I still deal with every day as a journalist, and I'll be honest with you, I still don't have the answers for a lot of this madness. And it is madness, the way people of color have been treated in this country historically. And I will not stop fighting for our people. Part of the reason I'm a journalist is because I'm all about balance. If you have a newscast that only shows Black people in handcuffs and doing all kinds of negative things, that's going to have an impact on the minds of the general public that, oh, that must be all you are. So, one of the things I enjoy doing is presenting the full picture of Black people, the excellence of Black people doing positive things. I've had you on, New York One over the years, all the positive things you've been doing, and so many people just across the board. So I think that's the Libra in me. Very true. So, I think that the balance is really important. And the support of people like you is really critical. So again, I want to thank you for your longtime friendship. You're not my friend, you're my brother.
That's how we do, my sister. That's how we do. Now, I was me and the Queen over here watching Essence Music Festival. I had
Right.
the opportunity to go 1 year, and I haven't been back since. So we're watching it, we're checking it out, and I was like, man, I think Sister Cheryl was hosting this
Yeah.
for 2 or 3 years straight. I was like, oh man, it's too bad she's not on it. But I noticed you had a clip where people at the actual music fest, which by the way, families in New Orleans, those you watching, were buying the book. I was like, man, Sister Cheryl's doing it. How does it feel to know that you wrote something from your mind and experience and it's connecting so well with so many people around the country?
Yeah, well, from one author to another, that is the ultimate gratification that, your thoughts and your opinions are worthy of someone's attention. And it's very humbling and it's very gratifying to know that people care about your perspective, right? Because that's what it is. And I've written not only about my family, but I have a new book called Is It Her Grace Amazing? The
Right?
women.
I
I
see that sister got notes now.
notes. I do my whole. I'm
Sister, you looking like a grad. You looking like a grad student now. You got notes. I see you.
yeah.
Now, okay,
I
let's
still do my homework, and this book is called "Is It Her Grace Amazing? The Women Who Changed Gospel Music," and it's about from oh my goodness, Mahalia Jackson to Sally Martin to Aretha Franklin to CC Winans and all the women who made an imprint in gospel music. And that was a beautiful introduction you did about it because I was hearing you for a long time before I actually, we actually connected. And you're absolutely right. You cannot tell the story of Black people without telling the story of Christianity because that really is a very important part of our culture. No matter what your religious beliefs are, you just can't deny it. So, from spirituals to gospel music to the current contemporary, it speaks volumes about the Black experience in America.
now, Sister Cheryl. What led you? I mean, there's as a writer, author, there's a million things out there, topics you can write about. You talk about hip hop music. Is it dead? Is it still alive? Is it relevant? Is it raunchy? You can write about so many things. Why did you choose to write this book about that topic and those women?
Yeah, because I was raised by a lot of gospel singers and performers. My grandmother, who you had the pleasure of meeting, Opal Wills, was the primary influence. And I was very close with my grandma Opal. I dedicate this book to her. And she was a phenomenal gospel singer. Phenomenal. And when you're that close to, everybody loves their grandma, right? And when you're that, I sat on the piano stool with her every Sunday morning in her little storefront church in Queens, New York, as she would sing. And then, we would go upstairs and listen to how the real people sang the songs that she sang in church. And I was just blown away by my grandmother's talent. And then when I listened to the recordings and compared it to her interpretation, I was like, wow, okay, so grandma, you didn't make this up. Like you're actually doing what a lot of people have done professionally. And so growing up with this music, I was familiar with all 25 women in this book. And, gospel music is powerful no matter what you think about any kind of religion. Gospel music is powerful. It will move you. And it sustained our ancestors through some very horrific times. And they leaned on their faith. And you hear that in their music. You hear it in their music. And women, especially, who were oppressed not only by the system, but sadly, very often oppressed by their men, by their husbands. These women, when they opened their mouths to sing, it was a whole new ball game. I mean, these women would change the air in the room. It was like giving birth to a song. And that's why when you hear Mahalia Jackson, Even Martin Luther King called her the greatest singer he had ever heard, and he wanted her with him everywhere, from the March on Washington. And sadly, when he predicted his own assassination, he said, "When I pass, I want Mahalia Jackson to sing at my funeral," which she did. And it just shows you the power of music that can stir the soul, that can change hearts and minds. And so that's why I chose to write this book, because of the power of these women. And so many of these women have been forgotten. They were larger than life in their day. And, now who's talking about Mahalia? Who's
Right.
talking about Sister Rosetta Tharpe, who was actually such a force that she's also in the Rock and Roll Music Hall of Fame? Who's talking about Clara Ward, who taught Aretha Franklin how to sing? Clara Ward, all of these women traveled all over the world, all over the world. They were stars, superstars. And when they died, their legacies were buried with them, Brother Ajay. So that's why this book was so important for me to write and for me to document their legacies. Because as you and I both know, if we don't protect our legacies, who will?
That's right. That's right. That's right. Our legacy, our narrative, our perspective is
Right.
everything.
We
Now, you
can't,
touched on this.
look to people to do this. We have to do it. And
That's
and
right.
you're a Harlem kid, right? You walk around Harlem. How many of our treasures have been razed to the ground? How many blocks have been wiped clean of the Harlem Renaissance? You know whose fault that is? That's our fault. That's our fault that the Renaissance ballroom isn't standing, that the Savoy ballroom isn't standing, that all of these treasures that made Harlem the capital of Black America, the fact that they disappeared, we have no one to blame but ourselves. I'm so sorry. It's up to the people to save their own treasures and legacies and write their own narratives. And so
That's
that
right.
I'm preaching what I'm teaching and walking the walk and talking the talk. These women did something extraordinary, and I'm not going to wait for some random historian that didn't know anything about them to write the book about them. Let someone who grew up with their music, whose blood, they're in my DNA, if you will. We should tell their stories, just like other people of other cultures do. We should do the same.
Beautiful, beautiful narrative there, Sister Cheryl. A lot of times people I know in my circles, the real revolutionary, I'm political, I'm revolutionary, they seem to not understand the importance of our culture. That even with the Black Power movement, you had its sister movement was the Black Arts and Consciousness movement, the poets, the singers, the
Right?
sculptors. Um, as you see it, and you touched a little bit on this already, but as you see it, what is the significance of gospel music? And I'm going to say specifically to Black people and specifically in the United States. What do you think the significance is for those who don't get it or don't think it's significant?
Or who may not know, and that's fine, because gospel music, people have tried to write the epitaph for gospel music many times, but it's alive and well. Mary and many other people are keeping it going. But once upon a time, gospel music was 100% significant to people of African descent. This was the music that was sung during the civil rights movement, when water hoses and dogs were being sicked on innocent people who dared to say, "Can I vote?" They fell down on their knees and sang gospel songs. When people were sicking dogs on them, and there was power when they sang those songs. I shall not be moved. We shall overcome. I know some people mock it and say it should have been fight fire with fire, but here's what they knew. If they hadn't sung those powerful songs, it would have been a bloodbath. They would have opened fire just like they did in South Africa and killed them and had no remorse, and no one would have been held accountable. They knew the devils they were dealing with. And so when they bowed down and got on one knee and gently sang those gospel songs, that showed you the power. You couldn't touch them. It showed the power of that song and of their conviction, their religious conviction. And take it back further, look at the significance during slavery. Um, a horrific, unspeakable crime against humanity. And so many people would notice that in the fields, and I've been in the fields where my family actually worked in Haywood County, Tennessee. When they were in those fields, they had songs coming out of their mouths, spirituals. And a lot of people were mistaken about what that meant. They thought it was a sign of, see, they're happy, they're fine with it. And that, no, no, I see it very differently. They were not happy with it. They were not fine with it. They knew that they were being victimized. But here's what they said: the system has put us in a prison, and the only weapon we have is to never let you take the joy out of our hearts. You have stacked the whole deck against us. Yes, these are unjust laws. It's terrible what's happening. But check this out. You can't have the joy of my soul. And that's what Nelson Mandela said when he was in prison. You cannot have. And so those spirituals that they sang were actually a weapon. It was their way of saying, you will not make us into monsters. You are the monsters. We are not the monsters. And we will do this work and we will overcome. And they did. So that's the significance of gospel music, in my view, to Black people in the United States. The music sustained them, it helped them overcome, it gave them comfort while living in complete hellish conditions. And they survived so that their children could live to see a better day.
That's right. That's right. And for those of you watching, we're here. We're at Harlem Liberation School online. Sitting with us, joining us again in the Harlem Liberation School studio is my good friend, anchorwoman, talk show host, author, and we're going to add to her resume family. She is a beginning genealogist. She's on her way to being a pro. Is that right, Sister
That
Cheryl?
is correct. I'm definitely an amateur genealogist. And for anybody that just tuned in, I'm not being Hollywood. I just had a little emergency where I'm not really dressed. So I didn't put on makeup. I threw on sunglasses. So this is not a Hollywood look. And I apologize. I'm dealing with senior citizens but I had to be here with you, my brother, because I appreciate you and what you do.
Thank you so much, Sister Cheryl. I want to add a little bit to what you said. Then we're going to move on. The thing that I need, especially those of you who say you're political and revolutionary and you're for the people, to understand is that our culture and the culture in most societies, we weaponized our culture. Cheryl, I think, said that in so many words. We've taken song and we've weaponized that song. So think about this. Ain't going to let nobody turn me round. Going to keep on walking. That's a weapon.
That's a weapon.
So when people are feeling cowardly,
right,
and they sing that song, people straighten their backs up.
That's right.
So that's a form of resistance.
That's right.
Straight up, we're not going to let nobody.
That's right.
Turn us down.
And the truly strong. See, I think people have it a little twisted. You think you're strong when you got an AR-15 and you go in and spray everybody away, and you think
right.
That's actually a sign of tremendous weakness, because you didn't change anything. You just killed people, and you're going to pay over and over for that. But the truly strong never have to raise their voice, never have to curse, and certainly don't have to be violent. And you can break down an entire country, as Gandhi showed us, as King showed us, as Mandela showed us. You can change the consciousness of an entire country that hates you, that's racist, by being strong, having a song of peace in your heart. That is a weapon that it's stronger than a bullet, in my view. So that's why it's an honor to have written a book about women in particular who sang this music, because to your point, this was their weapon. against injustice. Mahalia Jackson sang about Jesus and her Savior, and so forth, but she also sang about resistance. And she sang on behalf of the civil rights movement. And I just want to add one thing, Brother Ajay. Mahalia Jackson took a tremendous chance doing this. We can speak freely now and face no consequences, really, right? But we're talking the 1960s, where Dr. King would ask quite a few celebrities, "Will you join us?" And they would say no. I'll lose everything. And Nat King Cole told Dr. King that. "No, I'm not down with you. I'm just a performer." And King was like, "Okay, well, I understand." There were quite a few who were like, "I don't want any part of that because I will be blacklisted and I will lose money." And then, when, say, in Nat King Cole's case, when he was attacked on stage down south by a racist who beat the hell out of him, and all he did was open his mouth and sang, then he got it. We're all in this together. You can't say, "This is not my problem." Yeah, it's your problem, and you just found out why. So Mahalia Jackson took a tremendous chance um, with her career, but she was courageous and she was bold and she didn't look back. And she supported King, as did Sammy Davis Jr., as did Harry Belafonte, as did Sidney Poitier, and a lot of Ruby Dee, her husband. I mean, there were so many who did. And so, I think that's worth noting the importance of standing up during that time. It was not easy.
Now, I know that you came into this project with prior knowledge, but I also know you probably learned a lot of things as a result of your research for the book. Could you share with us a few more, some things that you learned from doing this book?
Yeah, so I learned that with this, so many of the courageous women who sang, they faced discrimination, like I said, on so many levels. They were discriminated against, of course, by this country, but then they were discriminated against by Black men. Gospel music was a man's game. And the quartets, the Blind Boys, they, and Sam Cooke and the Soul Stirrers and the Dixie Hummingbirds. I mean, I could go on and on. These were the gold standard for gospel music. And women were seen almost as a novelty act. They weren't taken very seriously. They were considered, okay, let's let a woman sing a song and then we'll get on with the real concert. So women really had to fight their way into the gospel music industry. And that's another thing I learned to answer your question about their tenacity as I was researching this book. And I talked with Tamala Mann recently, and I was talking about that, and she said it's still not easy for us. And I went, "What? You still haven't?" And she was very clear. She wanted to make that point that if there's still a challenge for women performers in the gospel music industry, that surprised me because she's a superstar. And so I learned about, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, a woman that was raised in the deep South and who her talent ended up taking her around the world. And she grabbed, Brother Aj, what's considered a man's instrument, right? A man's instrument, that being the guitar. And she created her own sound. And by creating her own sound, she turned out to create the foundation of rock and roll. Did you know that?
I did not.
Exactly. And how could a story like that be lost? Her riffs to her gospel songs influenced Elvis Presley, Chuck Berry, and on and on. And that is why she is considered a godmother of gospel music today, and she's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And then you have other women like Clara Ward. Everyone knows Aretha, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how many people know that Clara Ward and her famous Ward singers taught Aretha how to sing? Clara Ward was with a little Aretha when she was 7, 8, 9 years old, teaching her how to play the piano, teaching her how to hold a note, teaching her how to deal with an audience. Clara Ward. I put something on my Instagram about Clara Ward. Most people were like, "Who's that?" And I'm like, "This is So circling back, these are some of the things I learned during my research for this book, and this is why it is up to us to secure and cherish our own narrative. And I do mean secure. We have to protect and secure our story, because if we leave it to other people to tell, I don't think I even have to say, look at what's happening in this world right now with the whole pushback against Black studies and the so-called, race. What's this thing they call it?
Critical race theory.
Critical race theory. That is something someone made up to stop the education of Black history.
That's
Period.
right.
To
That's right.
suppress it, to demonize it. It's the oldest trick in the book. How come there's no critical other theory? But when it comes to us, someone always has to think of something to stop. Oh, we can't be teaching all of American children this. Why?
That's right.
This is American history. So this is what I learned during the research for this book, and that's why I'm so proud of it.
Now, the Queen Bee here, Sister Brenda, has a question. She says, how has going through this spiritual journey changed you? And I'm glad that she used the word spiritual, because I assume it wasn't just a literary journey, right? It was a spiritual journey to some extent. How would you address that question, Sister Cheryl?
That's a great question. Your queen is always on the ball, I'm telling you. And so this spiritual journey has absolutely profoundly changed me, no question about it. And it has broadened my understanding of who we are as a people. The search for my ancestors is also in line with this book, because so many Black folks are often buried in unmarked graves. There's no question that some of the women here were buried and they were not able to afford markers. And this happens across the board. And it speaks to a larger issue of how we protect each other in life and in death, you know. And I learned about that. And in terms of the spiritual journey, I understand the importance of speaking to the ancestors. That's the biggest lesson of all. When we were taken from West Africa uh, centuries ago, we lost some of the lessons, which now we are reclaiming. And one of the lessons is, remember the ancestors, speak their names. They have not died, they have transitioned to another energy form, and they can still connect and protect and bless. And that's been a tremendous lesson for me, because finding the final resting place of my ancestors and the actual plantation where they lived during slavery is a miracle. No one left me a forwarding address. My family lived there for over 150 years, and everyone is gone. How did I find it? So that is a miracle. I feel the ancestors' power. I don't know how it works. All I know is that it does work, that their power directed me little by little. Even when my father died at 13, I could see how that was also part of the spiritual journey, because I was so traumatized that a 38-year-old fireman could die. I mean, it was just such a shock to my little system that it made me hypersensitive to the ancestors, because my father became one too soon. So I felt a connection to my father even after he was gone. And because of that connection, and because of my refusal to just forget him and his legacy and to protect my father's legacy, that made me protect the people he was connected to and yearn to identify them. So that is all the spiritual journey that I'm talking about. So I encourage all of your listeners, and I know you have so many people who love and respect you, to document your family tree as far back as you could go, and don't stop with, oh, I ran into a roadblock and then just move on. Wait, ask the ancestors for guidance, and they will bring you more information. That's what happened to me. I have a list here of all of my grandmothers, Brother Aj. My oldest grandmother was born in 1780.
Mm.
1780. This country was just 4 years old. And her name was Patty Moore. And I have a list of every grandmother from my grandma Opal and Sally, my mother's parents, all the way to Patty Moore, oldest known grandmother, born in 1780. And the reason I show you that, that's a critical part of my spiritual journey, because I look at that list and I speak their names.
Mm.
There is a power when you speak their names. And we got to tap back in to what we lost before we were kidnapped and dragged across the Atlantic Ocean. We got to get back to that
That's right.
understanding that when you no, it's not true. When you're dead, you're not done. We
That's
live
right.
in a world that just wants to extract and strip you of, almost like mining for gold. And when they're done raping you, they're like you never existed. But that's not the reality. The reality is that you continue on in a different form. And I bear witness to that. And so that has changed my spiritual journey dramatically. And I tap into all of my ancestors and ask for guidance and protection. Then protection, because there are forces out here trying to destroy us all. And it's not a game out here.
That's
It's
right.
not a game.
Now you touched on this, Cheryl. You touched on this, but I want to go back because it's a perfect segue from this discussion you raised of the ancestors and connecting with them. Sister Cheryl, for those watching, I remember, oh my God, eons ago, I guess, your people come up and visit you at college.
Yeah.
And I would have they would be waiting for her to come down in the dorm, and I'd be talking with them down in the, whatever that was, the lobby with the they had a little TV.
Yep.
And I remember your grandmother and grandfather. And I wanted to know, when you had the book signing for Die Free,
Yeah.
before you raise this question, didn't your grandmother sing it that? Well, did
Yeah.
you have a gospel choir there?
Yes, she did, and we did have a choir. And my grandmother, she was getting frail, and my grandma Opal used to run and sing and dance in the church, and it was really something to see as a kid. But when I had that book signing, we could barely get her on the stage, and her body was getting weak. And I just said, Grandma, just please try. And so she grabbed the mic with her white hair and, you know, and no teeth in her mouth, but she sang as best she could. And, you remember that. And quite a few people will tell me, your grandmother really moved me. And it's so funny. I was like, she moved you. You should have heard her 30 years ago and 40 and 50 years ago. I mean, this woman would have people laid out weeping, because she would sing from a very deep, powerful place. And I always admired my grandma. I called her as a little girl Sister Wills, because everyone in the church called her Sister Wills. And I was the first grandchild, so I didn't know how to call her grandma. No one gave me a memo. And I didn't figure that out until I was a little older, that, oh, I should call her grandma. But she was an extraordinary woman, born in the Jim Crow South in Haywood County, Tennessee.
Mm.
And she received a lot of negative messaging, as so many people in this country do, that she was less than and worthless. And, she got all that, and she fought back against it. And I loved my grandmother for fighting, because sometimes you meet people who there's no fight left for whatever reason, and no judgment, but they just sometimes, it's so overwhelming when you have this negative energy coming at you, and sometimes you don't have the fight in you. But there are lots of us who fight to the end.
You
And
better
that,
believe it.
yes, Yes. And we pray for those who have a difficult time fighting back, but we exalt those who fight to the end. And Sister Wills fought to the end. She
Yeah.
never, my grandmother buried two children and when she in her prime, and then she buried two adult children. She
Wow.
buried all of her children. And I never once saw my grandmother cry. Even though I sat next to her when my father died, and I sat next to her when my uncle Van died. And something about my grandmother, she was like, I am not going to let this world catch me crying. And I don't know her reasoning for that. She took that one to the grave, but even when her last son died, and I was the one that had to deliver the news. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, and I'm not passing judgment, but for her, she was just like a woman of steel. She didn't want to show that emotion. I don't know if she saw it as weakness or what, but it was an example of how strong Black women are and how, you know, this life is winds blow sometimes. Sometimes the winds are strong and want to knock you down, and then other times it's a cool breeze. But you have to stand through it all. And that's my grandma. She stood through it all. And when she sang, woo, that's strength. You can hear it from deep down. And so I miss her so much. I have a picture of her that I keep on my desk. This is my grandma in her heyday. And by the way, that guitarist behind her is her son.
Mm,
Buried him too.
wow.
And Sister Wills used to sing. Let me tell you, she used to really sing. And no one sat still when she sang. So I'm just very grateful to have had that legacy. And I honor her and all of the ancestors. And I ask for their guidance and protection. And, I was the only one there for my grandma in the end, Ajay. All of
Mm,
her, like I said, all of her children were gone. And I was telling somebody the other day that if my grandma, if it hadn't been me, my grandmother would have been in a very bad way, maybe. Not to put down anybody, but I did everything, paying her bills,
wow.
everything. And I was so glad to do it. I was so glad to do it.
Well, then, Sister Cheryl, you also are showing another piece when we talk about ancestors. For those watching, it's not enough to revere them. It's not enough to invoke their spirit and ask them for guidance and help. You got to bring them honor too.
Yes.
You got to bring them honor.
Yeah.
And I think if more of our youth, if we were able to convince our youth of the importance of that, we might see some changes. Because a lot of times, especially now in my life, I say, will this bring honor to my dad?
Hmm.
Will my grandmoms, will they be proud of me? Or will this make them cower in shame and
Hmm.
disgrace? And I think that's powerful too. So certainly you're bringing honor to Grandma Opal and your other ancestors. Because you actually have gone back, dug up their story, put it in print for the world to acknowledge and see. That's a beautiful thing.
Thank you so much. And it means so much because, when my grandfather, Opal's husband, died, he said he was diagnosed with lung cancer. And I put this in the book and it shocked me. He flopped down on the couch when we brought him back to his home. And he said, I guess we weren't meant to have nothing. I put that in the book and I never forgot that because it told me that this young man who left a segregated town in Tennessee had all of these dreams and he wasn't able to do what he wanted to do. But notice his the use of pronoun. He said we. I guess we weren't meant to have nothing. And I remember I went, oh, like we? So that includes me.
That's right.
So when I work so hard and really do everything I do, I'm trying to kill that we because that meant my grandfather was like, ain't none of us gonna ever have anything. The deck is stacked against us all. And that's the one place where I want to prove to my Grandpa, no. Actually, you did good, Grandpa. You got out of that town and you got us to New York City. And yeah, you had a lot of tragedy and heartache and trauma, but you took a big step for your children and grandchildren to move forward. So we are doing better. And I feel like I always want to avenge that statement. You know what I mean? Because I guess it was almost like he was saying, and no matter what you guys do too, you're going to die the same way. You're going to have all these dreams and you're going to be disappointed in the end.
Hmm.
So that really, I'm telling you, seeing that, he was just in his mid 70s when he died. And it was a very sad death. You know, he had lung and throat cancer. He was a smoker when he was a kid, and it caught up with him despite he stopped for 50 years as a reverend. But, you know, sometimes when you damage your body, it just lays in wait and then it catches you in the end. And so I am just really, I work to avenge that statement. I,
Yes,
I, I leave this place, Brother AJ. I am not going to be like that. We were meant to have nothing, because that's the message that this world sends to Black people. You ain't meant to have anything. This is all for us.
that's right.
And that's what it's like. Wow, that infected your consciousness all the way to the end. So I honor my grandfather by trying to do better and make sure the world knows that actually we were meant to have not just something, but everything.
Teach. That's right. That's right. Now, as a segue from that, you're doing this research. I know you're looking for some of their lyrics, their meanings, their life stories. Is there any evidence that patriarchy was alive and well through the prism of gospel music? So, in other words, we might say, were the sisters that you looked at in gospel music, were they paid fairly? Did they have creative control? You know, what did that look like to you?
Oh yeah, they were treated unfairly. They were not paid equally. I mean, women overall were not paid fairly. Not in, even in the workplace. A woman secretary was paid less than a male clerk. So no, they were not paid fairly. No, they did not have creative control. No, they were not given access. I mean, it's no, 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 no. And there's a woman in the book named Sally Martin who is considered the godmother of gospel. And the father of gospel music is a man named Thomas Dorsey. He created the famous song, Precious Lord, Take My Hand. And she was right by his side. They were not, involved. They were just partners in the business of music. And she realized, okay, here's what we need to do. We need to realize gospel music is a business. Remember, this is the 1920s and 30s. So everything's just really getting off the ground. People are getting record players, music is becoming a commercial industry. And she said, we need to sell these gospel music sheets. We need to protect our copyright. We need to, protect everything we're doing and earn money from it. And she had the Sally Martin Singers, and she was a real pioneer in making sure women got their just due. But years and years went by, decades went by, where women were still underpaid. They were not treated fairly, and they were treated like second class performers.
Mm.
Black women across the board, not just gospel singers. We know how blues singers, we know how Billie Holiday was treated. We know how Lena Horne was treated. We know how so many of them were treated. So it was no exception for women in the gospel music industry.
Wow. That's something. That's really something when you think about. So, in other words, we can't look at these women, although they were famous and celebrated and had this great, exceptional talent, as being different from the average sister of their time. They dealt with domestic violence. I'm sure that,
100%.
right?
100%. And many of them died alone because they were abused by their husbands.
Mm.
Uh, so Mahalia Jackson famously divorced, and you would think, but it's very hard because listen, in the 20th century, a woman was supposed to be. It's not like now where women are entrepreneurs and business and doing their thing and they're equal with their husbands, right? That was not the case 100 years ago. Women had a very defined role. You were the mother, you took care of the children, the husband was the leader, he handled the money, and that was an American family. So if you're a performer, like say Mahalia Jackson, traveling the world, guess what? You're going to make a lot more money than your husband, who I don't know what her husband did, but say he worked for, say he was a worked for a train conductor. Mahalia Jackson's money and a train conductor's money. So immediately you're going to have a problem right there off the bat. Again, I don't know what her husband did, but I know what she did, and she made millions. So right off the bat, as a black woman, you're going to have a problem with a man unless he's super secure with himself. And good luck finding that in the mid 20th century, because so many men were taught, I'm here and the woman is here. So, and I'm not putting down men at all, but if you're raised to think that you're supposed to be here and a woman's supposed to be here, what do you do when the woman's here and you're here? So that
Right.
immediately caused a lot of problems for many of these women who earned millions of dollars. And I see so many of them had difficulty in their personal lives because of that.
Mm. Now, family watching, once again, this is Brother IJ Taimba, Harlem Liberation School. You're checking out the version of our organization online. We're here with Sister Cheryl Wills, anchorwoman, author, amateur genealogist, and public speaker, talking about her new book, Isn't Her Grace Amazing? Now, if, like myself, you're familiar with the Black church and gospel music, you're noticing something in that title. You're noticing a play on words, right? Now, Cheryl, I'm assuming you did that very consciously,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. So it's based on, as you rightly point out, Amazing Grace, one of the most, I think, famous gospel songs in the country. And Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. And it was written by a white man who saw how slavery was destructive. And it's a powerful history behind the song. But every Sunday morning, so in somewhere in America, Amazing Grace is being sung. So when we thought of a title for this book, and Amistad is the publisher imprint of HarperCollins, we thought, isn't her grace amazing? Isn't her grace amazing? So I love the title. We all came up. I can't take full credit for it. It was a collaboration, but I think I'm very proud of that title because it plays on, like I said, one of the most famous gospel songs probably in America.
Absolutely. I thought it was a very clever title, especially for people who, again, are
Yeah.
tapped into the Black church and gospel. Um, Now, I have a ticker going along the bottom, Sister Cheryl, that has your website, where I assume has a lot of information, but where can people purchase your book?
Wherever books are sold, including Amazon, Barnes and Noble, every major retailer all across the country.
Excellent, excellent. And now I am dying, and I'm sure other people are. Can we hear a few excerpts from the book
Oh,
that you don't
sure.
mind sharing?
Sure. So I'm gonna kick. I do a lot of. I talk a lot about the older gospel legends, but let's talk about one everyone knows, and that is Yolanda Adams. I'm very proud of Yolanda Adams. She's a great gospel singer, and she's a keeper of the flame, if you will. So this book pays homage to her, and I'm really proud that this great singer from Texas has performed all over the world, including the White House. She performed many times for President Obama. And just a little excerpt. This is really a picture book. You're looking at this is
Mm.
a soft cover copy, but it's in hardcover. And I just want to read a little bit from Yolanda Adams. Yolanda Adams always has the perfect ability to deliver the voice of God just when we need it most. Just a few short weeks after the untimely death of pop icon Whitney Houston in 2012, Adams took the stage of the NAACP Image Awards to honor her with a song that Houston made famous from the Preacher's Wife soundtrack, Love the Lord. When Adams stepped to the mic in her 6'1" glory, all eyes were glued to her statuesque frame as she began the song with a controlled reverence and sweetness in her signature soprano. So, we good writers, as you are, we try to paint a picture, right, of what you're seeing in case you don't know that Yolanda Adams is 6'1". And you mentioned my appearance at the gospel at the Essence Festival. I was one of the hosts for about 10 years in New
Wow.
Orleans for Independence Day weekend, and I had the opportunity to meet Yolanda Adams and many other great performers. Mary, I mean, so many, CC Winans and so forth. So that also helped inform my production of this book.
Wow.
Truly an honor.
You, it's really an amazing journey. I'm talking about both this most recent book, but also the exploration of your family's history and how both books and the larger themes presented therein are intersect and connect to some degree. Sister Cheryl, I'm always thinking that some young person, even if I got to put them in a headlock and drag them to watch it, they're going to see some of these broadcasts. So I'm always interested in the messaging they get. And I'm interested to know if you were to share two quick tidbits of general life information, what would you share with young people watching right now or that will watch the later recorded version?
Sure. So, as you know, I visit schools on a regular basis, and I talk about my what I call a sacred assignment, um, returning to the plantation, which is a miracle that it's still there, untouched. They still same family still owns it. They still sell cotton. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, when I go there, it's like being in a museum or walking back in time. So that's a real. I'm real lucky in that respect. That where my family was held against their will during enslavement, I can still go there and see what they saw and see how they lived. And the family, the white family, even preserved one slave residence. Can you believe?
Wow.
So, my advice to young people is tap into who you are through your ancestors. You didn't only inherit their hair color, their eye color, the shape of your face and your nose, you also inherited their strength. You inherited their gifts. And you are not here alone. You did not make yourself. This journey didn't start with you and it won't end with you. You are a link in a very honorable chain. And we are all here for a very short period of time. So make the best use of your time. And remember at all times that you are teeing up for the next generation. And if there's one thing, you made an excellent point about young people today and the sadness that we see in inner cities across the country. They actually may not realize they're taking us back. And that's a big no no. One thing our ancestors wanted, and I feel comfortable speaking for them across the board, they always wanted us to move forward. I don't care who or what they did. They always lifted their eyes and say, okay, you do better than me, okay? And then make sure your children do better than you. That's how our bloodline keeps going. But what you see happening in some cases is that children are regressing. They don't know who they are. They're falling for the same old tricks, the drug use, the gang banging. And so rather than criticizing them, we have to confront them and challenge them to be their best selves. And that's what I do. Because, when you're young, you can be pulled in so many directions and you don't even realize what's happening. Peer pressure is very real. So I get away from the criticism and the judgment and I just challenge them. Is this who you really are? Is this what your ancestors really wanted for you? Are you going forward or are you taking a step back? Because if you're taking a step back, I invite you to take a look what that will mean when you have children and it's time for you to check out. Was your time here worth it? So that's one thing. And then the second thing is to always make mistakes. You won't hear that much from people. Why I say that? My mistakes grew me. And when you don't make mistakes, that means you're scared. And that means that you're just going to do everything and hopefully, no one will bother me and no one will talk about me. And then when it's like, okay, and then what? Because as the great Muhammad Ali said, if you're thinking the same way now that you did 30 years ago, you wasted your time. And that's 100% true. And the best way to grow your consciousness is to allow yourself to make mistakes and not beat yourself up. We just heard from Will Smith. Will Smith made an incredible mistake slapping Chris Rock during the Oscars. But you know what? He gave a public on camera statement, and I looked at him and I was like, you're growing from this. And I've even put on his YouTube, keep moving forward. You made a mistake, but that don't let that mistake define you. Just keep moving forward. So that's my advice. It's not pretty to make mistakes. It's hard, but when making mistakes means you pull back the curtain and say, "Oh, I'm not afraid of you anymore. I'm not afraid anymore." A lot of us are afraid of criticism, of people laughing at us. Those are biggies. People laughing at us. What if we go forward and then it doesn't work out? Well, let this happen. Go forward. If it doesn't work out, you're still standing. Let them laugh at you. Did you die? No. Let them laugh at you. And then you'll see that you'll grow bigger than all of your fears. And then that's a life well lived. And that's what I try to do every day. When I make mistakes, I own it, move forward. And so those are my two little tidbits.
That's perfect. That last one, Sister Cheryl, resonates. The mistakes. I deal with younger, what would I call them? Community organizers, let's say. And they're very concerned about what this one thinks, what that one thinks. And I tell them, listen, or this one criticize them. And they built me up. But they call me Baba Aj. I say, listen, before I was Baba Aj, I was quick and stiff. I was running this big organization, and remember the Daily Orange, they would write cartoons with me in them.
Yeah.
They blasted me. I mean, you got to go through that. You got to make the mistakes. And Michael Jordan, his most powerful commercial is when he's walking, he got the suit, he's walking through the tunnel, and he says, I made so and so many championship rings, and then there's game-winning shots. He said, but he broke it down. I got thousands of missed shots. I lost this many games, and that's what made me the man that y'all love and respect now.
That's right.
So that's very powerful, Sister Cheryl. And
said that,
wanted to know now. This Queen Bee over here keeps bigging up this Libra thing over here. She said it's a Libra thing. I think that's so funny. Yeah, and she says from honesty and courage comes beauty and growth. And that's true.
Beautifully said. Beautifully
You
said.
can't be in denial, family. Recognize who you are, good, bad, and ugly. Embrace who you are and improve who you are.
Yeah.
We owe that to ourselves.
It's like
Uh,
pottery, right? It's like pottery. You're just molding and growing. Don't be afraid of death. I was talking to somebody the other day and they were like, I'm so afraid. I'm so afraid. I'm like, what are you afraid of? And, the individual said, I'm thinking about suicide. I was like, listen, you're going to die, and so am I. So you can either speed it up or you can let it happen naturally. But stop with that. I want to die. I want to die. I
yeah,
said, we're all here to die. Nobody's getting out of here alive. So find the courage, get the help and support you need, and just face this life. Sometimes it's tough, and but you come from steel. You come from people with steel in their spines. Steel in their spines. And if you do take your life, everybody's going to keep on trucking. So, I find that a lot of people, it's a lot of, I'll make you sorry. And it's just like,
mm,
I don't think that's a healthy way to look at it. We want you here. We want you to live. We want you to thrive. Don't threaten people with, I'm going to kill myself. So, and she was like, and she thanked me, because I was really very firm. Because usually when someone says, I want to kill myself, everyone goes, oh my God. And I'm like, listen, if
mm,
you do it, everybody going to keep on trucking.
that's right. That's right.
World
That's
ain't going to stop.
that's true.
Stop. We all got a box with our name on it,
That's right.
Living
People
this
gonna be bugging out at the funeral, knocking the coffin over, and then right after the funeral, they go right back.
they go right back and they might and
That's
living
right.
writing this book about people who have passed on. Please, most people have forgotten them and they traveled all over the world and cut records and were larger than life. Now I say their names, no one hardly knows. But I tell people, be of good courage in this world and enjoy your life in the sunshine while it lasts. It won't last forever. We're all getting out of here.
That's right.
We're all
That's right.
marching to our death. So live and laugh and love until it's over.
That's right. To the wheels come off. From the womb to the tomb.
From the womb, don't you let this world get you down. You enjoy this beautiful life. And when it's over, it's over. Don't rush it, baby.
That's right. That is right. Now, what is this we have here? Sharice is clapping, Brenda's clapping, and she loves that commercial where you coming out the train station, they got you in slow motion at the train, and they saying that she's sure that your grandparents are smiling on you, that they're proud.
Thank you. I owe them everything.
Well, family, we certainly want to thank our good sister Cheryl Wills. And what I'm really hoping in the back of my mind, those watching, is that she is countering the image or idea you had of her if you never met her or heard her. Oh, she's a black Anchorwoman. Be corny. She's gonna be talking about just stuff that don't relate. I hope this countered that. And the lesson is don't be judgmental of people. You don't know who people are and where they come from and their experiences. And you can learn even from people you don't like. Although our sister's very likable. But I've learned, I used to be on some, I don't like you, I'm not going. And that just hurt me. I've learned that sometimes you get some of your best lessons from people you don't like. Or even people who oppress you. You can learn from, believe it or not. So with all that out the way, we want to thank you, Sister Cheryl. I want to ask one quick favor. Don't leave the studio. When I go on, I'm going to end the show, but just try to stay in the studio, okay?
Okay.
A few minutes. We want to thank our good Sister Cheryl. Family, you know what we say. Your life is yours to script. You write the script. Even with with oppression and all this pollution and seas of plastic bottles and all this stuff going on, miseducation, mass incarceration, right? We write our scripts. Our ancestors were people who couldn't read and write in the enslaved context, this is, and didn't earn livable wages or wages at all. But they had the wherewithal to want better for you people they couldn't even see. I want you to think about the profundity of that. People they couldn't even see they were working for and say, well, my great grandchildren will be better off than us. And when we move and when we're writing and speaking and doing what we do in this world, we should be thinking 3 generations ahead. We should be thinking, how does what I do impact our people way into the future that are not even born yet? And if we can keep that up, family, you know what I say? We will win. Peace, Black Power, Wukusu. Keep fighting, family. Keep fighting the good fight. Please go to your local stores. Check out Sister Cheryl online. You can type in Cheryl Wills in the Amazon search, and you'll come up with all 5 of her books. Because you might say, you know what? I'm not satisfied with just the gospel book. I want all the books. So we're going to leave that to you. Wherever books are sold, you can also check her out and follow her at CherylWills.com. All right, family, thank you. Have a blessed weekend and peace.